I'm Beck and welcome to my September to be read plans, and I feel very unmoored in September because I read a bunch of my new release or anticipated releases during August when they came out, and in September I've only got one anticipated release, maybe two actually, and then other than that I've got some library holds that are going to chaotically come in whenever they decide they're free. So in terms of my reading for this month, I've got no idea what I'm going to do, but I'm going to try and wrangle it together in some kind of list here and talk about different books. First up, one of those two new releases that I mentioned is Wrath of the Triple Goddess by Rick Riordan, which is the second book in his newest series about Percy Jackson. It's like Percy Jackson wants to go to college, yet he has to do a bunch of side quests because the gods are stupid. So I love that this is capturing the old tones of the Percy Jackson sense of humor, but also because he's older, it's got a new invigorated story. So it's great for new readers and old readers. And I'm just really loving revisiting that world because Rick Riordan is really doing it justice, and that's why it's an anticipated release. It comes out, I think, on the 24th of September, and I've pre-ordered the audiobook. But the other September release that I am looking forward to is very different, and it comes out, I think, on the 5th of September. And it is The Gods Below by Andrea Stewart. And this is the same author who wrote The Bone Shard Daughter. It's got that red and white cover. But unlike Bone Shard Daughter, which was a young adult trilogy, this book is the author's, I think, fantasy adult debut. I could be wrong on that, but I just know it's adult fantasy. And I think it's about ancient gods who are awakening and gemstones in present day that unlock different powers. So I'm like, I'm sold, I'm keen, I'm gonna do that. So I've pre-ordered it as well on audiobook. I get a lot of audiobooks lately, and I find that they're so easy to listen to when I'm doing stuff, and it's become second nature for me to switch them on while I'm just like tinkering around my house. But those are my two new releases. As for what I'm going to actually read during the rest of the month, I'll probably continue my reread of The Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Now, I'm doing this on audio even though I've got the physical copies because this reread is long, it takes a while, and I'm taking on different audiobooks and things that come up from my library. I'm listening to those and stopping and starting this. I'm also doing videos of the best bits of each book, and so far, obviously, because I haven't finished this yet, I've only done the best bits of The Way of Kings, so I'll link that in the description for you. But I just love this series and I want to nerd out about it. Actually, I forgot about this one. I wasn't going to mention it, but I saw it sitting here and I was like, oh yeah. And I've got The Dark Prophecy on audiobook, so it's funny that I talked about a Rick Riordan release as a new release that I'm anticipating because this is one of his other series that's like leading up to that new release, and it's the second book in the Trials of Apollo series. So Apollo, the god of art and music, has been thrown down from Olympus by Zeus because the oracles aren't working. They're not giving the demigods prophecies anymore, and Apollo himself has wronged Zeus, and so he needs to like make up for that. And so for character building, he's been sent down and now he's a teenage boy and he's got to go on all these quests with the characters from the previous series, and I love seeing the other intersecting characters. Book one of this series is like setting up the foundations, and I feel like when I start this one on audio, it's going to delve more into the depth of the quest and the intent, whereas Apollo in the first book is like so superficial because he used to be a god, but he starts to mellow across the series, so I know that I'm going to enjoy this one much more than the first book. To be fair, the first book was still 4 stars for me, so I'm really anticipating starting this one, and I actually have this on Audible, so I don't need to wait for a library hold. So Bob's Your Uncle, I can read it whenever I want, which is great, but then also because I've got no deadline, I'm like, maybe I should read a library book instead. And that right there is why I have decided to do what I'm currently reading videos, which are weekly check-ins about what I'm currently reading, because like I said, it can get very chaotic, and I've got a few library holds that might actually come up. Here are the titles that I'm probably going to be juggling in September. One of them is How to Keep House While Drowning, and that's a 3-hour audiobook, and I think it gives you a list of 30-something things that make it easier or help you recognize like why things are overwhelming. I'm not sure. I know there's a list. I know it's about drowning in the modern day, and I know that it's just about like adult life and tasks. I'm just like lumping all of that together in my expectations, and hopefully this one will be good. I like reading nonfiction on audiobook. I recently actually did a video about good nonfiction, so if you want more nonfiction or you want to recommend me some, that'll be fantastic. Recommend me some in the comments, or like go to that video and recommend me some. I'm always open to trying nonfiction, especially when it's on Libby. Speaking of nonfiction, I actually have another one that's potentially going to come up during like the month of September for my Libby holds, and that is Cultish. And this one follows the language of fanaticism, and I think it's about modern cults like yoga retreats or MLM schemes and that kind of thing. I don't know much more than that. I've only heard a few people talk about it on BookTube, so I wanted to try it for myself. And the audio is only 8 hours, and within a week I'm naturally catching a train for several hours anyway, so I feel like I'll get through that one quite quickly, which is good for The Words of Radiance, because if I get through it quickly, quickly I can go back to continuing that book. And next up, I've got one more physical book to discuss with you about potentially what I'm going to be reading this month in September. And before I do this, I realized I hadn't mentioned my ebook whatsoever. So I've got a couple of titles on there as well. I'm actually still currently reading The Tainted Cup because I put that on hold while I read my August anticipated releases. Consider that a carryover for my to be read pile. But that aside, we're just gonna like put that in a box and push it away. I am going to be physically reading, if I can get to it, The Mask Falling by Samantha Shannon, which is the sequel to I just realized that this is the third book. What am I doing? The Mime Order. That's better. This is book 2. Anyway, you can tell how chaotic September is going to be based on this to be read video. But if I can get through my other reads, or if my Kindle doesn't take my attention, I'm going to try and either finish this or at least start it during the month, because the 5th book in this series, like newly to this series, is coming out in January 2025, or maybe in February 2025. Either way, it's the beginning of 2025, so I want to make sure my reread is well in hand before I get to the newest book in the series. I've also got a spoiler-free review for the Bone season, and I've also got a spoiler recap for the Bone season. So if, like me, you want to do a reread but you can't be bothered reading the first book, I have a recap for you so you can skip straight onto this one. But really, that's my goal, to just do a lot of reading and kind of go with the flow, and I hope I can fit some rereads in there as well, because I've got a lot on my plate, but in an exciting way, and my reading motivation feels very much amped up compared to what it has been in the past. So that is my September TBR. Let me know if your TBR is usually as changeable as mine. I would be very interested to hear. I'm a huge mood reader, so I might just change my mind, and that's why I do my weekly check-in videos. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Everything I've talked about will be linked in the description. I'll chat to you down below in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.